Idaho Matters podcast is brought to you by St. Luke's On Demand Virtual Care, which allows patients to see a provider from their home using a computer or smartphone with on demand care for common ailments such as a cough, sore throat, or a sinus issue. More information at stlukesonline.org.
Public media is under immediate threat. I'm General Manager Tom Michael from Boise State Public Radio. In the coming days, the U.S. Senate is expected to vote on a rescission request from the White House, which wants to claw back funds that were already approved by Congress. This station is one of hundreds across the country that would lose out. You can let your U.S. Senator know directly that you value funding for public radio. Or visit protectmypublicmedia.org.
From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Samantha Wright, filling in for Jim Gaudette. It's Idaho Matters. Globally, there are millions of people that live with a chronic illness or disability, changing the way they see and move through the world. It's these experiences that interest the current James Castle House artist in residence, Ariana Martinez. Since May, they have been exploring the many different ways that we come to know a place and to navigate our surroundings. And this Thursday, they'll be giving a final presentation. Joining us now to talk more about the event is the artist, Ariana. How are you today?
Hi there. I'm so glad to be here with you today. I'm sitting here in the James Castle House and just soaking up all the energies as I have been for the last couple months.
Oh, tell me about yourself and what drew you to this residency.
Yes, so I am an artist working across sculpture, print media, and I had a long-ish career in sound in radio actually, so
Oh, wow.
coincidentally. And so that still informs my work now. But I've been interested in James Castle's work for many years and knew that I wanted to come to the residency program as soon as I learned about it. I was back in 2021, 2022, I was living in Chicago and I just moved there in the early pandemic times. So things were still pretty locked down. And I was already starting to have some chronic illness symptoms that I didn't know what they were yet. So I was very locked down. So I was just in my house all day by myself, mostly making artwork and doing various work from home. And a friend gifted me a book of James Castle's work.
Nice.
And it was then in reading about his work and reading about an artist who spent his entire life really like devoted to the careful observation of just a few spaces, right? Just, um, the very kind of insular spaces of his daily life. That gave me a lot of like perspective and a lot of hope during that time, when I was also really, really enclosed in an interior world.
Well, I mentioned in the intro about experience of sickness and disability, and how they present new ways of navigating the world. Talk to me about this and how it informs your art.
Yeah, so I have a couple of neurological conditions. So they're invisible disabilities. I have narcolepsy and I have another kind of weird thing called idiopathic intracranial hypertension. So these two things do various things to my body and mind, but um, both of them have kind of uh, very strange fluctuations in both energy and like kind of your sense of time. Like with narcolepsy, you fall asleep a lot during the day, right? So my day is really fragmented into these little bits and pieces. And that also means I shouldn't really drive. So I've really reoriented my world to be um you know a- really on the ground, right, as a pedestrian, as a biker, um when that's feeling okay. And then I also have symptoms that affect my uh, vision. I get kind of like if you're someone who gets migraines, you might be familiar with like a visual aura. I have symptoms very similar to that. So there are times when I am like trying to do as minimal visual work as possible, but still want to make things. So I've really turned to, um, tactile methods of making things. I have training in sculpture. It was my undergraduate degree. And recently have rediscovered kind of traditional craft methods, woodworking, basketry, as things that can be done even when I'm not feeling my best. Uh,
Well, and some of your art, you mentioned audio, but there's pieces to be heard, to be touched,
mhm.
not just to be seen.
Yes, yeah. It's very, very important to me that my work, you know, that I make work in many different kinds of forms and that I invite different kinds of sensory ability and attention, right? Like, I'm not interested in making work that's only going to be for audiences who might passively view it with their eyes in a gallery. That's a very limited audience in terms of who is around to like experience the world and to have perspectives on the themes that I'm working with, which is like, how do we navigate the spaces that we live in? How do we connect with the other living things that are around us? And most of those connections, at least for me, are not just visual. I mean, I think to have a rich experience of the world, the more the more options you give yourself as like a sensory being, the more access you have to the world. And I think that like people who maybe don't consider themselves disabled may not um think that that's something that they can invite themselves into, right? Like if you're someone who you're kind of used to the cards you were dealt, right? You kind of go about your daily routine using your senses in a certain way, you might actually miss other ways of engaging with the world in really deep, rich, profound ways. Because it's just not the language and way of moving and thinking that you have. And I think that's there's a lot to learn from other ways of sensing.
You mentioned soaking up, for a better word, the vibe at the James Castle House.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
what about the Boise River? I understand you found some inspiration during your time here.
Yes. Yes. So because I walk and bike everywhere, in order to get across town, right? Say if I wanted to go to Garden City, for example, I would need to ride a bike there. And the easiest way to get there is along the Greenway. And I was just absolutely taken aback by that space as soon as I started interacting with it. And I like it's one thing to kind of speed through it on a bike, but it's another thing to kind of get off, get on the ground. And I've made work in relation to bodies of water for a long time. Like most recently, I've been working with Lake Michigan after living in Chicago. And as someone who had an audio career, I have experience in field recording, so I know how to get a really good, um, you know, high quality recording of an outdoor space. And it's something I hadn't done in a long time. But when I was here, I was like, this is a way that I interact with spaces and have interacted with spaces for so long. It would be a shame not to capture this one this way. So I came out a couple weeks ago with a Zoom recorder and a contact microphone, and I attached that contact microphone to a tree root that was partially in the water and partially outside the water.
Oh, neat.
And what I found was that you can hear the water, the river, moving through the body of the tree root through that microphone. So it's this
Wow.
incredible connection of elements that you wouldn't be able to experience any other way.
Wow. Okay, that's incredible. And folks are going to want to hear that. We've got just a couple minutes left. You're going to give a final presentation of your project on Thursday. What are you hoping people take away from this?
So, yeah, I'm having this opening presentation or final presentation on Thursday. I'm hoping that uh, I've been working on these two writing projects that are like books of writing and reproductions of prints that I've been making here. Um, and those two texts are very different from one another, but I think related in terms of the themes that we discussed at the beginning of this interview. One is an essay about this experience of recording the Boise River and the relationship between hearing and touching. And so I'm hoping that will inspire people to go out and have really direct contact with the world, not to just speed through it, but to like really, what does it mean to sit down for 2 hours, and have a conversation with the river? You can do it. It's possible.
Mhm.
You're not going to use speech, but you'll use other ways. And the other is a book of poems that I've been writing here. And I think that relates so much to experience of time. And in narcolepsy, you spend a lot of time in dream world. And I've realized that that's actually a really useful space for thinking about positive visions of the future, especially ecologically. We're at a moment where we really need to be imagining some pretty, big shifts in how we relate to the environment. And I think thinking about the distant future or distant past even, and closing that circle is something I've been thinking about a lot. So that series of poems relates to that, those set of ideas.
Ariana, this has been great. Thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
And that'll do it for this episode of Idaho Matters. Thanks so much for listening. And just a reminder, you can find all of our episodes wherever you get your podcasts.
These days, there's so much news, it can be hard to keep up with what it all means for you, your family, and your community. The Consider This podcast from NPR features our award-winning journalism. 6 days a week, we bring you a deep dive on a news story and provide the context and analysis that helps you make sense of the news. We get behind the headlines. We get to the truth. Listen to the Consider This podcast from NPR.